Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome in. We'll get started here in just a moment. I like when I've been to a couple of, social things or whatever on Zoom, and they're like, "Where are you from? Put it in the chat. Let's talk." So y'all feel free to do that. Or your LinkedIn, network, grow it, put that in there, connect with folks. Do you care? Is it St. Louis where some people, where is it that some people say Louis
No,
versus,
no one from St. Louis says Louis, by the way. Just
okay,
so you know.
Louisville, that's what it is.
Louisville. Louisville.
Louisville. Louisville. I knew there was one
Something that goes on.
controversial location. I take it as a compliment that you feel so comfortable with me that you could check me so quickly.
I just want to
Like,
make
ain't
sure
nobody
you're
prepared for
informed.
that.
Like,
I can't have you out here not knowing
you
things.
say, don't do it again. Don't do it again.
Yeah. Hey, you can do it again. You know better now. You know what I mean?
And when you know better, you do better, hopefully.
Ideally, we're human.
Yeah.
Contrast is a thing. You know what I mean? It's fine.
Ooh, ooh, we got a couple people from Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philly stand up.
Buford, Georgia, or Bufford? I think it would have to have two F's to be Buff. It's Buford. Cool. Uh, London.
Hey, London.
London.
Right? I resisted the urge to do that, Tanisha. And then you pulled me in. London.
I'm sorry,
Um,
nobody does it like Elise though.
right? No, because she puts her whole heart and soul into saying it like that. Um, Wyoming. Mariah, what's up? So good to see you. Your name. It's good to see everyone. I don't want you to think I'm playing favorites, but yay, Wyoming. Cool. And DC. I like that. So everybody's got a buddy. There's more than one person in each location.
Okay, DC.
Hey, hey.
I'm here for all of it.
What's your favorite restaurant? Because DC's known for good food, right?
Oof, so many. It is. Me personally, I got a couple. For like a quick bite Mediterranean, there's a restaurant called Yellow that is
Mm,
crazy good. They have like a smoked lamb pita. It was actually featured on Somebody Feed Phil.
fancy.
Fire.
Hmm.
For soul food, nice little fried chicken wings. The Hitchin Post in Northeast DC. Fire.
Hey,
Um,
shout out to Northeast. Sorry.
yeah, shout out to Northeast. That's where I live. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't
Okay.
be telling hackers that. I don't know. That's right. That's right.
I
Because I was
mean,
about to ask you what part, because I'm from Kenilworth, so
hey y'all,
All right,
y'all
so
put that
I
in the
live
private chat so you
in.
don't give people your business.
That's fair. That's fair. Y'all already got my IP number. Got you, Tanisha. I got you. Let me go ahead and open it up right now.
I love that the first thing that you mentioned was like Mediterranean and talking about lamb and whatnot. He's like, hey, I don't know what the rest of y'all do, but I'm fancy.
I mean, I spent a decade in hospitality. I'm not trying to brag. I have eaten at some pretty solid restaurants around the world. So, it is what it is. But I like soul food because duality.
There you go. We are not a monolith.
That's it.
Indeed.
Do I contain multitudes? Very well then. I
Yeah.
mean,
Levels, layers, an onion, if you will.
blooming.
Blue. That's it. And what's the place? Outback. That should have been one of the food recommendations. I'm a blooming onion. Anyway, um, I notified, I let Craig and Tanisha know, and I'll let the rest of you know as well. I'm not sick, but my nose and throat are currently revolting against me. So
I
I
know people.
apologize,
Sure, you're not
right?
sick.
I'm fighting them valiantly. I apologize in advance if there's a little extra bass in my voice, but as Tanisha reminded me, it's all about the bass. So no trouble for you as you listen to the rest of this podcast and webinar episode. So I'm gonna do like the formal intro kickoff so that whenever we post this on the uh, Cyber Things podcast, it sounds polished, but then the rest of it is going to be an informal conversation. So prepare your hearts and ears.
Hold on one second, because
Yes, ma'am.
I want to post this. Banks, could you turn off your camera, please? Because I have it on camera view, so I only want to have that in the picture.
No. But it was a
Mr.
pleasure to
Banks.
see you, Mr. Banks. Pleasure.
Turn off your camera, sir.
And for the rest of the populace, we know him.
Oh, we
We're
do,
not
yeah.
friends.
We
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 know
know
him.
and love him.
Okay. Cool, cool. Ready?
Yep.
All right. Doom, doom, doom. That was just my own little. Welcome to another installation of Bring a Hacker to Workday, a webinar podcast series where we dive deep into the minds of trailblazers across various industries. I'm one of your hosts, Rebecca Skeet, and
And I am Tanisha Martin.
yes, she is. Today we have an incredibly insightful and inspiring episode lined up for you. In this episode, we're thrilled to bring you an exclusive interview with Craig Allen. I wrote it in bold, so I said it like that. A dynamic leader whose career journey is nothing short of extraordinary. From his humble beginnings in the hospitality industry, becoming a successful entrepreneur, and to making waves in the tech world. Craig's story is a testament to resilience, innovation, and the power of following one's passion. We'll explore the pivotal moments that shaped his career, the challenges he overcame, and the invaluable lessons he's learned along the way. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or someone looking for a dose of inspiration, this episode is packed with insights that you won't want to miss. So grab your headphones, get comfortable, and join us as we uncover the remarkable journey of Craig Allen. Let's dive in. What do you think, Craig?
You
That
think
hype
she
up
missed her
enough?
calling? She definitely missed her
I'm
calling.
like, is that me? What?
That's you, pimp. I mean, you're not a pimp. Like, let me dial that back.
Put it
That's how
in
rumors
reverse.
get started.
That's
Yeah,
how
right.
like
My wife is
apologies, upstanding gentleman, husband and father,
community leader.
the community. There you go, round that out. And blooming onion, because you have layers. Okay,
Uh,
so let's get started. Tell us about your early career in hospitality.
Yeah, sure. So, I don't know how far back to go. I'm from St. Louis originally, came to DC to attend Howard University. My plan was to be a lawyer, right? Back at home, I joined the St. Louis internship program starting the summer after sophomore year. Worked at a law firm, you know. Worked at a law firm. I would talk to summer associates and partners, things like that. Asking different questions about like what's the best major to do for law, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, graduated with an English degree from Howard, took the LSAT. My score wasn't my favorite. It was like 75th percentile, which was fine. Didn't reach my standards. Graduated in 2009. So for a little bit more context, I haven't really believed the news for a bit, only because in St. Louis, I noticed that oftentimes when there were like violent crimes or things like that, they would plaster the faces of the Black person that committed the crime like everywhere. And if that person wasn't Black, mysteriously, that face would have a question mark. And so, that to me didn't pass the sniff test. So 2009, I'm hearing the news, oh, the recession's crazy, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, it's crazy, right? The news be lying, they be lying. And the news, in fact, was not lying. The recession was crazy. I stayed in DC because really the government kind of insulated us. We had a better economy than most places in the country. I'm still unemployed for about 3 months, sleeping on my twin brother's couch. Um, he at the time was working on the restaurant while he was still at Howard. And so I started working in restaurants. I was there at Ruby Tuesday in Columbia Heights, which is no longer there. And this was before Columbia Heights was like Columbia Heights. Oof, I don't even want to say how long ago, a while ago. And I was making like no money. Like I was a server. I became a weekend bartender. And I mean, I would leave a Friday shift with like $80. It was crazy. Eventually, realized I kind of along that journey, I fell in love with hospitality. I fell in love with interacting with people, really just having interesting, stimulating conversations, just meeting a diverse group of people was amazing to me. I realized I really only wanted to do law to make money because I grew up poor and I knew that was a great way to wealth. And so I figured, I really like hospitality. I really like the fact that there's an infinite amount of things to learn. So let me pursue this. Couldn't pursue that at Ruby Tuesday because I was broke there. So ended up moving to a restaurant company called Matchbox. Was doing a lot better, making, better money where I could be a little bit more stable. This company was growing like hotcakes. And so I told ownership that, hey, I'm interested in managing because my goal was to, along my path of entrepreneurship, learn as much as I can and get paid for it before I risk my own money. I was able to be promoted to an assistant manager in about 10, 11 months of working at Matchbox. So I was initially at the locations don't matter, not all y'all in DC. I'm not going to dig too deep into the weeds. But I ended up managing like multiple parts of the front of the house, schedules, ordering, inventory, things like that. Managing a pretty large restaurant in downtown DC. And eventually I felt ready to be a general manager. To me, that was the next step before I opened my own, what have you. And as I was looking, one of the chefs from my Matchbox location told me, "Hey, we're opening our own restaurant. We need a general manager. I know you've been looking." Bada bing, bada boom. Interviewed, and so this restaurant's called Brookland's Finest. I was hired as the opening general manager. They actually are still open. They just had their 10-year anniversary in June. And I did everything from the rooted to the tutor. I mean, hired everyone, created all operations, training, hiring, firing, which was crazy. I would climb up on the roof sometimes, just really did what I needed to do, banned people. And really, I did that for about 3 years, felt like I had the pieces that I needed to start doing my own thing. Left, I was serving at a Michelin star restaurant called Blue Deck Tavern, which is part of the Park Hyatt Washington. Well, I worked with some business partners who are fraternity brothers. I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I crossed to Howard, which is our beta chapter. Anyways, served while working to build that. Eventually, we stopped with kind of just, being in the lab, creating different concepts and started doing pop-ups at local distilleries and breweries around DC, leveraging relationships I built at Brooklyn's Finest. And then the goal was really to launch into a bar that served barbecue. My business name was Brotherhood Smoke. And shortly, maybe we're probably in operations for maybe like 8 months or so. COVID hit. And I found myself unemployed from my main job, which I was working as a server at the Conrad in Estuary, the restaurant inside the Conrad. Again, I live in DC. At the time, I had a mortgage. I have a wife. My daughter was like 8 months. And I just really wasn't confident in hospitality providing me the financial security to pay my bills. And so I kind of zoomed out, figured, okay, well, let me see what I can do, talk to some friends, former roommates. They said, hey, a lot of the skills from hospitality transfer to sales. So I said, okay, let me look into sales. I started interviewing to like insurance places, direct to consumer places. After getting a few offers, I realized I prefer the complexity of business to business sales. So focused on that, looked into tech sales, which is incredibly lucrative, like literally the most lucrative role in America is tech sales, especially on an hourly basis. And so I decided to pursue that, found a company called memoryBlue, which is a business development firm. So basically what they do is they teach you how to do the entry-level sales role for tech companies that will partner us with the tech company. So I worked with Microsoft VAR and then also a company called Suki, which is an AI digital assistant in the healthcare space. As I was transitioning out, I also did some biz dev for Rapid7. From there, that contract was 15 months. So I found Darktrace, which is an AI cybersecurity company. I haven't shared yet, but my interest in cybersecurity actually started while I was still looking for a gig in the pandemic. I noticed that, at the time for people like myself that were unemployed, basically there was an extra unemployment, I don't know, kicker. I don't know what you want to say, but there was a little bit extra put on top of what normal unemployment benefits are so that people could survive. And eventually our government was fighting over continuing that, and that ended up going by the wayside. However, at the same time, there was a bill on the table to basically strengthen our country's cybersecurity posture, and that passed with heavily bipartisan support. And so I noticed that if something can make these fools on the right and the left agree,
Mm.
that's something that you need to pay attention to. So yeah, we started at Darktrace almost 3 years ago to the day, October 18th in 2022 as an account executive. I've said a lot. I'm gonna pause. Maybe I could keep going, but
Mm.
I'm
No,
here.
that was good. We, I would say let you keep going because you have your own volition, but it was a great story, and you kind of followed along. I was like, oh, I was going to ask that question. You already answered it. Okay, okay. I was like, let me circle back. You have a twin. You slept on the bed on the sofa or whatever. Um, so to kind of take back to some of the things that you've already mentioned. How did your experience, because you said your friend also told you, hey, a lot of the things that you've done in hospitality transfers over to sales, and then also, I'm assuming in technology as well.
Mhm.
What how did your experience as general manager, specifically in that role at Brooklyn's Finest, how did that prepare you for your transition um, into tech?
That is a great question.
Thanks. That's why I asked it.
I think really, I think regardless of the role, working is about people. And people skills are something that's so underrated, but so necessary. Understanding how to resolve conflict, understanding how to sell yourself, understanding how to hype people up, right? Understanding what people aren't saying, but they are, and understanding what people mean to say, but they're not. And so I think really honing those people skills as a general manager really helped in terms of my tech transition, especially in the entry level role of being a BDR, which, for those of you who may not know, involves a lot of cold calling strangers, a lot of cold emails. And it takes confidence to pick up the phone, call a stranger who probably gonna hang up on you and might yell at you.
Mhm.
But kind of once I got to a place where I was confident, because it wasn't easy, to be honest, transitioning into tech. Certainly not as a Black man, where people don't look like me and don't sound like me. But just leveraging those people skills and kind of charm that I gained, um, made it easier to transition. But it still took a while, I think, to be confident and being myself. That was a different journey that, we can talk about as we continue the conversation.
So
Yeah.
I got a quick question.
Sure.
When obviously hospitality and tech are completely two different animals for real, right? And a lot of people that we tend to work with, they tend to approach like a career change, like, hey, I have to start over, right?
Mm.
So like, how did you, highlight the things that you did from the hospitality industry that I think, you know, would be an asset to a company in the tech so that it wasn't like, hey, I'm the same as somebody who's like fresh out of college, for example.
Yeah, sure. So I actually used what's called a skills-based resume. I was having a conversation with my line brother. His name is Francis Roberts. He's now the head of partnerships at Snap. He was at Google and he was transitioning from Google to Snapchat. And he told me that's the type of resume he used when he switched from actually like not venture capital, but like Wall Street basically to tech. And so I use a skills-based resume. I'm happy to send out the one that I use. You can Google it, but honestly, the hiring is broken. I'm not gonna hold y'all. Hiring is people don't know how to hire anymore. Processes take way too long. They're scared to take chances on people. And so, if you are someone like myself who changed careers, then you really want to make it as easy as possible to show people I may not have done this specific role before, but I've done this and I have this skill. And so, like as an example, for BDRs are looking for business acumen. And so I would just have business acumen as the highlight instead of, I don't know, Brookland's finest. And then I'm listing stats and different things to highlight my business acumen. So a skills-based resume is what I use to transition roles.
That was a
Awesome.
great
Thank you.
question, Tanisha. Good job.
You're welcome.
I was like, ooh, I'm in awe. Um, okay, and so then you also mentioned, was it Brotherhood Smoke, Brother Smoke?
Mhm.
I like the name.
Thank
Entrepreneurship in of itself can be both rewarding and challenging.
you.
Sometimes heavy on either, depending on which way the pendulum swings. How
Mhm.
did running your own business shape your perspective?
That is a fantastic question. How did running my own business shape my perspective? I think I realized I need to let go of perfection.
Mm,
We were doing a lot of cooking in my fraternity brothers' like basement, creating different recipes that we wanted to try and add to the menu. But at some point you have to launch, and through the launching is where you learn. Nothing that starts is going to be perfect, and that's fine. Life isn't perfect. No one's perfect, but understanding that I just have to put it out there, and then, like success, like life is iterative, right? I can continue learning and growing kind of as I figure it out, but if it stays in my head, I'm not gonna figure nothing out. I think that answers your question, Kennedy. I forgot what the question is, but hopefully
listen, no, you answered it, and then you also gave me a great couple little sound bites, like, oh, let go of perfection. I could put that on a shirt. At some point, you have to launch, put like a little rocket on there. Be like, we, world domination. Um,
It's the
so thank
we
you.
for me.
I mean, you might as well take joy in the launching, right? Because the other
Soldier
one could
Boy
be
ain't
like,
got nothing on
ah.
you. Soldier Boy ain't got nothing on you.
It
For
depends
sure.
on which day you catch me because some days it's like I'm excited for the sky, and then there's some days like, oh my gosh, I'm scared I'm going to fall.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
embrace the joy where you have it.
Yeah, let me add. So I do want to add as well, kind of with
Mm,
entrepreneurship. And I think one thing that kind of can benefit everyone is I think a lot of people can see things as pass fail. And
mhm,
outside of tests, when it comes to life, that's not reality. Anything that you don't do well in, you're going to be learning on how to do that better the next time. Kobe and Michael Jordan, as an example, people talk about all the shots that they missed, and they probably missed more than they made, but they're still champions. But if they never put themselves in the position to miss a shot, then they wouldn't be Kobe, they wouldn't be Michael. So
Mm.
as you put yourself out there, as you make mistakes, you're going to learn from those mistakes. And even though it can be a hard teacher, really that's the best teacher there is, I think.
that was the perfect setup or alley-oop since we were talking basketball because Tanisha always tells the squad to shoot all shots. Like, don't be the first person to get in your own way. And sometimes I have to say it back to myself, even while I'm saying it to other people. Um, so that was perfect. Thank you. So with that shift, you mentioned shifting from hospitality, and various levels of hospitality to eventually owning your own company and then shifting to sales. And you also mentioned that sometimes, the L's are lessons, not always losses. What are some of the things that you faced during the transition? Because a lot of people, the fact that you even focused your resume to be skills based, I think shows the perspective of I'm looking more so to what I have from a position of what I have and not from a position of lack of what I'm missing.
Mhm.
Um, However, there are some people who they hit that imposter syndrome or what have you, and they're like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Can I do this?
Yeah.
So what are some of or if any, because maybe you are really that big of a boss and have never had those moments of doubt,
I'm
but
a
what are
humble.
some of the biggest challenges that you faced during that transition?
Yeah, the biggest challenge I faced was myself. Um,
Mm,
as I transitioned roles, so yeah, again, I was a server at a fine dining restaurant at the Conrad, which is like the upper echelon of Hyatt. No, not Hyatt. Hilton. Hilton. Been a while. I'm sorry, y'all. But and so honestly, I took a crazy pay cut going from serving, which in DC you can make really good money. Some servers make 100K to being a BDR. Like I took like a 50% cut at least on base. Luckily there was commission, so I mean I could make up for it and exceed that eventually, but I put a lot of mental pressure on myself of I'm gonna lose my house. I'm going not gonna be able to feed my family, this, that, the third, right? And so as I took that into calls, because as a business development rep, BDR, your goal is to set meetings for account executives that ideally the account executives will continue down the sales process until they're bringing revenue for the company, just to give y'all some additional context. And so every call that I'm on, I have all this pressure of I got to set this meeting because I got to hit quota because I got to pay my bills. And when you put pressure on yourself like that, and that's what you're thinking about, you're going to not do well at your job. And so I actually, and a lot of this I haven't talked about, but really a lot of my journey is as well my village and my friends and the community I've built. And so I'll never forget it. There was one Friday I was talking to my coworker, a young guy by the name of Josh Klein, right? I transitioned careers. I was in my early 30s, like 33. Josh, this is his first job out of undergrad. Anyways, it's Friday. It's like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. He's like, hey, bro, like hear you. I see you. We started together. Like, I know you're good. Why are you not booking meetings? And so we go back and forth, and he's listening to a few of my calls, and he's like, hey, man, it sounds like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. Like, it's just a phone call. It's fine. And he really helped me see that he was 100% right. And so what I did was I started leaning on the fact that I've talked to thousands of strangers. I've talked to celebrities. I've talked to Angelina Jolie's dad. I talked to him for mad long. I served J-Lo, a portee for Michelle Obama. You know what I mean? I talked to homeless people. I've talked to Kathleen Sebelius, like a range of people. I can have conversations with strangers. And so I really started leaning into that. I started leaning as well into the nerd side of me because I like learning, right? That was one thing I think that was attractive about law. That's one thing that was certainly attractive about hospitality. And so I started learning as much as I could about tech sales. I remember reading Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, which is fantastic. I would use the late night radio DJ voice, so drop my voice a few registers when I would talk to people and make them feel at ease.
Mhm.
And I also read a book by Trish Bertuzzi, who's like the queen of business development. And she said, you're just having a conversation. Like, remember, at the end of the day, it's just a conversation. And so, really, that helped me take the pressure off myself. It helped me just, kind of listen to what I'm hearing on the phone rather than, oh, I got to set a meeting because I'm not going to feed myself or I'm not going to feed my family, which was no good. I would say as well, I think what was the question where I struggled in the transition?
Or just what were some of the challenges you faced?
Yes, and another big challenge was being Black in tech. I come from hospitality. First of all, DC, when I came here, chocolate city, beautiful. St. Louis, very Black, very white, not much in between. There, not to say that there's not diversity in between, but St. Louis, a lot of Black people though, where I lived, right? Hospitality in DC, a beautiful cornucopia of people. I learned how to say hello in like 17 different languages because I worked with people from all over the world, right? Russia, South Korea, you name it, Ethiopia, And so coming into tech, especially as a student from Howard University or graduate of Howard University, and seeing that I didn't see myself reflected was very problematic for me. And it really kind of made me shrink into myself and start using verbiage I don't use, like, oh, sure, let's circle back. I don't talk like that. That's not me.
Oh, yuck.
Yuck, yuck, yuck. Like that wasn't it, And honestly, what I did was I made sure that at my company, as I saw people that looked like me, I reached out and I created a community. And honestly, I just made a Teams chat of Black people that I saw. And I would ask them, hey, you trying to join? You trying to join? Not all skin folk or kinfolk, to be honest. And so I did gatekeep a little bit and still do. But for those of us that were about it, I created that community, and it made it a lot easier for us all to not feel isolated because my company at the time was national. And it made me lean more into being myself, and I still to honestly struggle with that at Darktrace, but as I had more community at Darktrace, and I became more myself and kind of started listening to myself and knowing that I know how to run a business, so let me run a business how I know. That's when I truly found success within tech.
I want to circle back to something you just said. Circle back, right?
Mhm.
Because I think you dropped the gym, and some folks might have missed it. You said that you went from making like 100, six figures in hospitality to taking a pay cut to
Almost.
go over to.
Not quite almost, but
Well, but you took a pay cut, right? And
yeah.
I think that some people, when they're looking to transition into another career, they think like, hey, I'm not going backwards. And while I can appreciate and value that, like if you think about like a Kobe or a MJ or any of those people or LeBron, if they're facing pressure right in front of them, you know what I'm saying? They'll take a step back to make the shot. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense for you to sit there and make the shot, with somebody's hand in your face, right? Take a step back. And I think that sometimes that's necessary. And so can you talk a little bit about like, hey, how did you, I guess mentally say like, hey, I'm doing this, but it's necessary for my progression. It's necessary for the next phase of my life. And, because you had a family, you mentioned you had an 8-month-old and, so how did you decide like, hey, this is the move?
Um, Honestly, I kind of thought since I was a kid, again, I grew up quite poor. But I realized through my journey that wealth and riches are built over the long term. So I never chased money on a short term basis. Even my hospitality entrepreneurship journey was very methodical. As I transitioned, I was like, let me get a little faster to the bag because I haven't been to the bag yet, right? And so as I was looking at companies and I found memoryBlue on their website, they actually have a sheet of alumni, which details what they make. I think in tech, a lot of people say, oh, tech money, but a lot of people aren't transparent about what that money looks like because, like what is a lot of money to you might be different to me and vice versa. And so memoryBlue, that had a stat of like this many years out, people are making this much. I think 10 years out, like over half of the alumni are making $250,000 or better. 5 years out, like 15% of the alums are making like 300,000 as an example. 5 years out, or like 7 years out or something like that, that same proportion is making like 500,000. And so I was like, oh, okay, I could do that because I've never been on the bottom barrel of anything that I've been in. I think that comes from growing up poor in St. Louis. You know what I mean? Like I grew up, I have a twin brother, as I said. my mother is a single parent, and I am 37. I grew up in the 90s, surrounded by gun violence. St. Louis has what's called a desegregation program. So I would be bused from the inner city where we hear shootings all the time to literally one of the wealthiest counties in America, where one of my classmates, their parents' winter house was next to Ralph Lauren, right? And I would still, no one cared about what my hardscrabble upbringing was like. I would just have to grind and get it, and so I think that taught me that honestly, if it's not about death, I'm not scared, And so when it came to betting on myself for that transition, it wasn't gonna kill me. So what was it? I saw what the money could be, and knowing that, some people get bonus checks at like 700 racks, So I'm like, okay, well, that is something that can leave the legacy that I want of ensuring that my descendants never experience the poverty that I experienced. And honestly, I, to a degree, had to go in and, along the journey, convince my family to support me, but sometimes when you have a vision, everyone's not going to see your vision, and when that vision is put in your heart, you have to protect it like a little fire in the wind. And then when it grows, people are going to come to that vision to get warm. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so like, for me, that's what I did. Again, I didn't have support and I had to talk that out, but I still went forward and did what I had to do.
So you're writing a book?
I should. I probably should.
Yeah, you probably
I,
should. And
I've thought about it.
this is me giving you some charcoal or whatever it is to help you guard that little light. So when you write that book, I can write the forward or something. Because
Right.
Look, Becca's cementing her legacy here because she's about to be writing the forward to my book too. So she's out
listen,
here shooting shots. I'm here for it.
take it as a compliment. If I see, a winning team, I like the sports metaphors too. So if I see that Splash Brothers are getting started, I want to switch
Yeah.
teams and play because I want to win too. Um, so you mentioned uh briefly with Darktrace how it kind of organically happened of you creating a group and everyone a safe space for other folks who look like you at the org. So
Mhm.
now you're the global employee lead of Darktrace's BIPOC employee resource group. Is that
Mhm.
accurate?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's accurate.
What are some of the one, what does that mean? What does that look like? And two, what are some of the initiatives or goals that you work on to promote diversity at your workplace?
Yeah, sure. So, what does that mean? So, an employee resource group is an organization that ideally provides like-minded, I'm not going to say like-minded individuals. To a degree is right, but really it's people that belong typically to protected classes. So, whether race, sex, gender, etc. And really the goal is because, I mean, there are a lot of isms that still persist in our society. And, some of us, I mean, we're going to experience those isms if you are falling insert protected class, especially if you fall in more than one. And so businesses have understood that happens and they see that turnover happens because there's a lot of blind spots there. And so employee resource groups serve as safe spaces where employees can join together and where we can, ideally push initiatives that are going to benefit not only people that work there, but the businesses at large, because diversity, it's been proven time and time and time and time again, benefits businesses, though businesses still push back a bit against that. So, what are some initiatives that we're doing? So, currently, I'm working on finding different organizations that we could partner with to increase the diversity at Darktrace. Ideally, that's going to launch next year. Exactly. You already, as well. One thing that our my colleague said was important to them was making sure that we celebrate diverse holidays. So literally today, something just went out for UK Black History Month, as well as National Hispanic Heritage Month in the US. At the end of the month, I'll actually be going to Seattle. I'm having a conversation with my sister-in-law, who is a professor at University of Seattle, or University of Washington, Seattle, and we're going to talk about kind of like race and racism, kind of to put a pin at the end of Black History Month. But those are a few things that we're working on. Otherwise, really, I'm trying to, like, we only launched, I guess, earlier this year. And so big picture, I'm trying to make sure that the regions are able to, like support themselves and figure out our own initiatives. I think really I want to follow what larger ERGs do. Still kind of getting there, still building the plane, but really at the end of the day, I want to make sure that not only do those that fall under the BIPOC umbrella feel comfortable, but that our allies and people that want to know how to be an ally feel comfortable joining. I think at the end of the day, if we are insular, and that's not going to benefit us necessarily. Community and villages have certainly always improved the lives of Black people, but I think if we want something on a social global level, we have to make sure to understand what these systems are, what they look like, how they're perpetuated through no fault of people's own. Because I think there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of guilt when you start talking about racism, and shame. And when guilt and shame come into anything, people tend to avoid that, right? And so big picture, that's something that I'm trying to work on within the ERG, so that, people understand, hey, this isn't necessarily your fault. This is how you can fight it. And further, this is how you're negatively impacted. Because I, as an example, had a conversation with someone, and they're like, hey, I know this stuff doesn't impact me, right? And it was a white person. I'm like, actually, that's where you're wrong, bucko. I just talked a little bit about how racism negatively impacts white people. Heather McGee did a fantastic book on it, called The Sum of Us. And it talks about, as an example, like when Southern states didn't expand Obamacare, thousands of white people died because hospitals closed all across rural areas in the South, as an example. But to back up, those are some initiatives that we're working on. And, honestly, still trying to figure out more.
That was a thorough response. And you mentioning Obamacare made me circle back again. I say circle back. I don't think that's color coded.
Hey, that's
But
fine. It's not verbiage I use,
right. Um, to earlier when you were talking about different folks who you've been in the presence of and who you've talked to or whatever, and you mentioned Ford T from Michelle Obama.
Mhm.
You've said a lot of things. That's the most impressive thing today. Do with that what you
That was the
will.
most impressive thing I've done
I was
for
like,
sure.
oh, cool.
We had this really fancy tea set up at Blue Duck Tavern because, again, it's a Michelin star restaurant, and the Obama offices are actually across the street. And so she would come in, Barack would come in, President Barack
I was gonna
Obama.
say first name. Okay,
Be
go off,
respectful.
Craig.
Let me be
That's a
respectful.
flex. I'm here for
No,
it, and it's a flex.
and so one of my good friends, he was serving Miss Obama, and he was like, yo, bro, I'm super busy. Do you mind pouring some tea for you? And I was like, do I mind pouring tea for the queen? And so I went, I'm pouring the tea. She's in this beautiful dress, looking regal. Oh my God. And I, come with all the setup, all the things. And she's like, this is a little fancy, ain't it? I'm like, nothing too fancy for you, Miss Obama. And I'm like blushing and red. Luckily, I'm dark. You can't tell that I'm blushing. And then I walked away like, oh my God, oh my God. Like, fanboy. It was crazy. But yes,
So
Michelle Obama. Awesome.
that might sound like a random aside to people. One, I was genuine in my response because I still think she's fantastic and I adore her and I think that's awesome. But there's also things to be learned from that experience. One, some people are too haughty to serve. And sometimes they rob themselves of experiences and opportunities because they think they are too big to do XYZ. That's not my job. This isn't whatever. And I feel like you end up doing yourself a disservice. It benefits yourself, the person that you're helping, and the world when we serve. And I think it was actually Bill Clinton who said one of the most selfish things that you can do is be selfless, because those things circle back. Whether you believe in karma, whether you believe in, do as unto others as you should have others do unto you, or whatever. If you're building your network, helping folks helps you. You should do it just because it's good to do. But even if you were just serving yourself, helping others helps you. The other thing is you mentioned your friends and your village throughout when you were speaking. One that you had a place when you were down and out or whatever, you knew you could stay with your brother. When you were getting ready to redo your resume, your friend helped you say, hey, this is how you should, or this is what I am doing, this is how you can do whatever. And even something as seemingly simple as, hey, I'm busy, can you pour tea? And now you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
With BGH, we talk about the squad, and one of the things that I love the most about this organization is that's what Tanisha teaches and exhibits, and then for all of us to follow. What are we doing for everybody else? You know what I'm saying? It's not just, oh, I'm going to get up, I'm going to get on, and then I move on. It's I'm opening the door so I can let other folks in and I can help as well. To tie all of that in is to say, one, I'm appreciative of the work that you're doing at Darktrace because is that a volunteer role? I guess I'll start with that. The
It is.
leading. Okay, I figured as much. So oftentimes, so many people take on that extra work. They're like, they know it needs to be done. They see that there's a desire for it, there's a need for it. And you are taking your extra time and energy and what have you and leading it because you know it needs to exist. And then also making room for partnerships like this, coming to BGH and saying, hey, whatever I can share, whatever I can do, I'm willing to do. Um, so anyway, I appreciate that. And I, you know, metaphorically or symbolically give you your flowers. These don't exist. Here's the
Appreciate that.
to say that I see that and I value it. Um, okay. One of the things I wrote down because I had like it broken out into sections of the different things I wanted to talk to you about. And so the next one was personal insights and advice. I added the quote that she said, if it's not about death, I'm not scared, which goes unnecessarily hard. Like you could drop a mixtape, you could do spoken word. You could, I mean, that could be the opening line of your book, whatever. But if it's not about death, I'm not scared. That's is that, have you always felt that way? Did you come to that? Is that something that you evolved into, grew to? Like, is it informed by your more recent experiences, or have you
No,
just
I mean,
always been a boss?
not even a boss. It's just like, again, I'm in my late 30s. I grew up in a major city in the 90s. You know, crack was huge, gangs were prevalent. There were shootings behind me like not daily, but like weekly.
Mhm,
I remember I was with my mom. It's my mom, my twin brother, and I. We're just walking home from my mom doing like a dress fitting for a wedding. Very normal, very quotidian, you know? And then literally it's like a gang war pops out, right? Like I'm hearing shotguns, I'm hearing semi-autos, I'm hearing pistols. My mom's like duck and run. My twin
mhm,
and I were so young, we are like, let's race. Like we didn't even think about the fact that we could have died,
mhm,
right? And unfortunately, throughout my life, I've been in too many of those situations. I'm not that guy. I'm not a thug. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be in the streets. I was trying to get as far away from the streets as possible. But you know, like America has a problem with gun violence, and I grew up well too acquainted with that problem of gun violence. And so, because I've faced my mortality far more times than I would care to, far more times than anybody should, to be honest with you, it gave me that mentality. It also gave me the perspective of when you leave this earth, what's important? No one's gonna care about Darktrace. You know what I mean? Like no one's gonna care about memoryBlue or Blue Duck Tavern. People are gonna care about how I showed up for them and how I made them feel. They will care that they felt love, right? I think that's the most important part of humanity that people miss out on a lot, especially in this country because we value individualism rather than community. Our species wouldn't survive without community, without support, without love. And one thing that I say is love is a verb. It takes action, you know? So kind of in a very long-winded answer, I'm quite verbose.
Yeah, no.
That's where that mentality came from.
Listen, birds of a feather fly together, and this is why we became friends. You don't have to apologize to me for talking too much because there have been plenty of conversations where I feel like I've bent your ear. Um, outside of work, you're passionate about capoeira, right? Sci-fi
Yes.
novels, spending time with your
Yes.
family. How do
Yep.
these interests and activities help you maintain balance and fuel your creativity in your professional life or personal? It
Sure.
doesn't have to tie back to work.
Yeah, sure. There's so much more to life than work. I appreciate that.
Mhm,
Honestly, as a man, as a father, as a husband, one thing that I've learned actually really recently, I'm gonna be honest, like I was depressed at the beginning part of this year, right? I am very much a lover and I will go hard for people and try to show up as a friend. But really I through my ERG work, I went on a trip to London, and was having a good time. But anyways, kind of on that trip, I realized that I was using loving others as a proxy for loving myself. And my wife does a fantastic job of making sure that she's in community and that she's doing things for herself to ensure that her cup is full. And kind of along that journey, I realized I can't pour from an empty cup. And so I gave myself permission because my daughter's now 5, right? And my wife has, I'm not gonna say no problem, but my wife will say, "Hey, I'm about to do this. You got the kid?" And I'm like,
mhm,
"Yeah, I got you. Sure." And like,
mhm,
not even thinking about that option exists for me as well.
mhm.
And so, I gave myself permission to do capoeira. We recently had what's called a batizado. So I graduated and leveled up a chord, which was fantastic. Fought people all over the world, got kicked in the chest. But this tall Brazilian man, it was great. He was so good. Um, Sci-fi, I've loved reading since I was a kid. I think my mom says we learned how to read at the age of 3. Actually, was the youngest student in my high school graduating class. And so like right now I'm reading The Return of Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. Really just enjoy sci-fi. Again, I'm a nerd, right? And I think what's really interesting about sci-fi, they say, is eventually becomes true. As an example, fun fact, the author of Dune actually created shipping containers, and something that he wrote before he wrote Dune. But that, and like I love going to museums as well. I don't go as much as I should, but ultimately making sure that my cup is full makes it easier for me to juggle things, and that really gives me the balance. It keeps me from running on fumes. It keeps me happy. It keeps me joyful. And it's that much easier to be joyful and happy with my wife. It's that much easier to be joyful and happy with my daughter. Excuse me, it's that much easier to do the same at work, right? And I think when I can bring my whole self to my life is better for it, and other people are better for it as well. Not on some like arrogant stuff, but I very much believe the quote, we were meant to shine as children do. And by allowing your light to shine, you tell others and give them permission to shine their lights as well. There's a lot of people that are not comfortable being themselves, especially in the work setting, but generally, they may not see themselves, they may not love themselves, what have you. It's a journey for all of us, and so since I've done that journey and continue to do that journey, ideally I try to give others permission to do the same. Because if you watch kids, pure joy, beautiful. And so I think we should all give ourselves the space and permission to do so. So that starts from having a full cup.
Look, we might as well just go ahead and pass the collection plate, because that was a whole that was
Wow.
a whole message right there that hit me right in my feels. Like I'm here for it. But I think it's important for people to realize that, even when we're talking about, world domination, you can't do that from a place where, you can't, exist. And if you're not here, you can't take over, anybody's world. So, you need to make sure that, above all else, that you're taking care of yourself. Tanisha, I'm talking to you.
Hmm.
That you're taking care of yourself, before you can, help other people. You know how they say, put your mask on before you, put your neighbor's mask on, that type of thing. And I absolutely love that for you. I know that Beck's got some other questions, but I wanted to just make sure that I got this one in before we run out of time.
Sure.
I'm very big on talking about world domination plan. Like, what is the impact? What is the legacy that you want to leave? When you leave this earth, you mentioned, like, hey, no one's going to care about Darktrace, right? So what is the legacy that you're trying to leave? I know you mentioned the financial legacy for your descendants, but what does that look like for you? And how do you know that how will you have known that you've achieved what you were meant to, here on this earth? What does that look like for you?
Sure. Two legacies I want to leave, which I shared the first one about my descendants. What does that look like? Not worrying about bills no more. I candidly where I'm at, I want to make sure that I continue increasing my income. My goal is to start buying businesses and then just buy multiple businesses. That's one of the quickest paths to wealth. Luckily, as a homeowner, I have access to capital that most don't. And so getting to a place of where my businesses are, bringing in 50 plus thousand a month, I think that'll put me on a path of the legacy that I want for myself and my family. Um, and then the other legacy that I want to leave, that I'm leaving, is leaving the world a better place for Black people. Not to say that that's exclusionary, because of what I think and what I see is that when the lives of Black people globally are improved, then everyone else's stations rise. Like the civil rights movement in America was very much started, by Black people, and you see other people's rights gain as well. And the opposite, unfortunately, is also true, as they try to take away our rights for voting in Georgia, as an example. It's affecting everyone. And so I see that as action, right? Some people are, maybe they don't care, maybe they don't have the courage, maybe they don't believe that it's possible, but who I am is I believe that too many individuals have changed the world to believe that I can't, right? Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Jesus, you name it, Rebecca Ski, Tanisha, you know what I mean? Like, too many people have done it, to be honest. And so who am I to deny myself that possibility? I'll be honest with you, I'm a Christian, all right? And I'm not trying to proselytize. In the Bible, it says that we were all created as God, basically. And to me, or we were created in God's image, right? To me, that doesn't mean that we all look like God. To me, that means we are creators, as God is a creator. And so for me, it's all about creating the life that I want to see, not just for myself, but others, right? Having conversations like this to give people hope that you can change your career. I've done it, right? And if I come from the background that I came from and I'm here, why can't you do it too? You know?
Okay.
Absolutely love it.
Wow. So yeah, I had other questions, but put a nice little pin in that one. I guess since we have what about 10 minutes left, I can open it up to if anyone has any questions that you would like to ask Craig. You can either put it in the chat or
Sorry,
come off mute and do so.
I got a question.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so when I think about sales, right? Whenever salespeople call me, like I'm ready to, like you said, some people cuss, I'm just like, get off my phone, right? So, how do you get past I guess all of the no's to be successful in what it is you're doing, right? Because I feel like it's a numbers game, right? So, you ask enough people, you'll get enough, return on your I guess emotional capital just in that process. How did you get past that?
Yeah, so really, you have to detach yourself from the outcome. You can't be tied to it emotionally. You have to really work on your emotional regulation. One thing that I would do, what my old manager suggested was creating a playlist. And so, like, I have Kendrick Lamar, Triple X on that playlist. I have Chance the Rapper on that playlist. I have Jacqueline Carr, You Will Win, just to hype myself up, But honestly, like once I realized every call isn't the end of the world, and it was really easy. If you're gonna give me no, you're gonna give me a no, right? And if you're gonna cut me off, if you're gonna cuss me out, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem, But really, when it comes to those conversations, making sure that it's a valuable conversation for the stranger I've talked to, right? As a business development rep, I think a lot of people in those entry level roles don't realize the knowledge they have, but if you're calling 100 people a day, talking to 10 people a day about one thing over a week, you've had maybe 50 conversations plus. In a month, you've had 200 conversations with separate people about cybersecurity. You're going to learn a lot, And so, in taking that knowledge that I've gained, then you have valuable conversations with people. And if you're presenting something valuable, that's a conversation worth having if you're a stranger or not, right? Hey, I've talked to 30 business owners like yourself. They tend to tell me that ransomware is a big issue, not in the email space because they use an API-based email, but really in Microsoft's Teams because we're seeing a lot of exfiltration there. Curious how you're covering that because candidly, Microsoft still has a bit of a rules and signatures approach. You mind talking a little bit more about that? Maybe we can set time at the end of the week. How does that sound? You're like, oh wow, this person knows what he's talking about. Absolutely, my email is great, or my email isn't great. Let's talk about that and let's talk about how you can protect my team's environment. But if you're like, hey, how you doing? Get off my line, you know. And then if you throw a deeper register in, then people are going to spend a little bit more time with you on the phone.
Right.
But also, again, the Chris Voss book, Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss is a former hostage negotiator. He gave a lot of tips about having conversations like that, like mirroring things like that, that work incredibly well.
Yeah.
It's crazy that the hostage negotiator wrote a book about splitting the difference.
Learn from experience.
I'm sorry.
I feel like the voice thing works for the ladies as well. I'm like, and what do
I was
you
about to
think
say
about that?
you changing your voice has lifted a many a room. So, just that modulation, I think, works for people in different ways.
It does. It does.
All
Everyone
right.
likes Quiet Storm, right? Or used to. I don't know if they're still around anymore.
All right. So questions. Let's see. What advice do you have for someone pivoting into the tech space with a cybersecurity focus in the DMV area?
Yeah, get out there, start networking. There are cybersecurity groups around the DMV. There are Black cybersecurity groups specifically. Start there. DC is a very educated, very techie hub. So the more people that you can meet, introduce yourself, the easier you're going to make it, right? Again, hiring is broken. When it comes to these large companies, if you don't have an N, your application is probably going to go in the trash. But if someone's like, hey, Mariah, yeah, I know Mariah, she's dope. That's how you get an interview. If you don't have a reference and you're trying to apply at Microsoft, you're wasting your time. So get out there, meet people, join organizations. That way you just like this one, right? Not only do you increase your knowledge, but you increase your network. And as they say, your network is your net worth.
And I can
Yeah.
confirm Mariah is in fact dope. So do with that what you will.
Yeah, I
Um,
was gonna also say, like, most people, who end up getting jobs go through the side door or the back door. They're not going through the front door, which is submitting your resume through like the ATS system on their website or something like that. I have a large connection of LinkedIn people that I'm connected to, not because I like people, because I don't, but only because of the fact that, I think that it's important to use your network. So, I tell people all the time, like when you're applying for a job, if I'm connected to somebody and I can make a connection for you, please shoot your shot. Let me know. It takes no time for me to be like, hey, XYZ, this person is interested in this job. Can you talk to them about it? And I think it's important to use your networks, not necessarily in a, just take type of way, but be a reference and be a resource as much as you are taking. And I think that the world will balance out.
yep.
Indeed.
Other
No.
questions from Mr. Allen?
We all shy. Okay.
Right? Don't be shy. How many times have people said to you, you ain't gotta lie, Craig?
Too many. My I don't know, social media names are actually where Craig at,
Mm.
because I get that reference, and it's old. It's been old for like decades by now. Not trying to make fun of you, just it's been a lot.
Listen, I didn't think you were making fun of me until you said that just now.
Never that, Rebecca. You know. Anyways, I was at work, and my guy Vince, short white guy from Detroit, he came up to me. He's like, "Where Craig at?" And I was like, "Yes, finally something fresh." Loved it, but I don't know. Too many times to count. Countless, innumerable times. Where's Smokey? Okay, I don't know. Smokey is in the
I was about
backseat.
to say, if my name was what'd you say, Brother Smoke? Like nobody would
Brotherhood,
ever use my real. What'd you say?
brotherhood.
Brother Brotherhood Smoke. Yeah, nobody would ever use my real name again. I would be like, yo, you can call me Brotherhood Smoke.
Brotherhood Smoke. And I would say it like that with a voice too. Hey, the young whippersnapper, my name is Brotherhood Smoke. Let me put you on about cybersecurity. What your
Bringing the
That's
smoke.
team's
black
looking like.
communication for
Look, bringing the smoke.
I don't want
I
no
want
smoke
all
because
the
I
smoke.
bring the smoke. I create the smoke. You want to know where that smoke comes from? The fire that is within me that is lighting the world. You see, circular. Bring everything circling back. It all ties in.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we are coming up at the end of our time here. Beck, you want to close us out?
Sure. Thank you all for your time and attention paid. And then also, Craig, thank you for the
Okay.
life lived and taking the time to share it with us. And then also taking on the position of leadership and advocacy for the folks that you work with. Um, I know, we do have to have a good balance between work and life, but so much of our time is spent at work. And so it helps when we can have a positive experience, when we know that there are people who care about us and are trying to make a better environment for us to live in. And so I'm excited about the opportunity, one, for us to connect, one that, and it started with work of client, customer, and then we were able to become friends, and that you're able to then say, hey, BGH, I've heard you talking about that. What can we do to help? How can we support? And so I'm excited about what we can potentially do in the future as well. Do you have parting words? I'll let you because Mr. I'm not afraid of anything. If it's not death, I'm not afraid, and all your other gems and jewels. I'll give you
Drop
the
some.
opportunity to close it out for us.
Funny. Let me think about it. I will say I'll be in Dallas in a few weeks, by the way. I'll text you
Come
so that
through.
and connect. I'll be hitting the Texas State Fair, of course. But anyways, what gems do I have to drop? Honestly, I think really a big part of life is getting out of your own way. And so mentally, whatever it is, whether you want something to be perfect, perfection doesn't exist. Whether you're scared to do it, that's fine. Do it scared. But ultimately, if something is worth having, it's probably going to scare you. But at the end of the day, once all is said is done, and you're about to leave this earth, do you want to live a life of regrets, or do you want to say, I did what I had to do to create the life that I wanted? It may not have worked out like I wanted. I may not be a big shot lawyer, but who cares? I found joy, I found happiness, and I built a life. So that's all I got for
That's
Here
perfect.
for it.
you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. We have a Bring Hacker to Work Day scheduled for Wednesday. Look out for your emails, details to follow. Y'all have a
Awesome.
great
Thanks.
day. Bye.
Bye.